I don't know why I'm here. That was a lie.
To make this panel look good, that's the thing.
I brought my Warriors hat for the Warriors fans. One more game.
Should have been a Bulls hat though, right?
It's red.
Play to the home crowd. Okay. Well, we appreciate the opportunity to be up here and to visit with everyone for a little while today. And one of the things that Baron and I have in common is our jump shot. No, actually, it's our friendship with a gentleman who is a fantastic entrepreneur and real social entrepreneur. The guy who founded Shinola. And I'll tell you a little bit about the mission behind Shinola, and then Baron and I can talk a little bit about what we hope to accomplish. And Baron has been a great advisor and thought leader in the development of Shinola over the last 6 years. 6 years ago, our founder came up with a crazy idea. Actually, he'd had it longer than that, but started to act on a crazy idea of building a watch factory in the United States, taking what had been a historically domestic industry that had moved overseas and bring it back to our shores, and in the process create world-class manufacturing jobs. And that's what the core of what we're all about, is trying to create world-class manufacturing jobs in areas that need them. And Detroit clearly fit that bill, an area that in 2011, when Shinola started, was in desperate need of jobs. Obviously not the only city, hardly far from it, in the country that was in need at the time, but one that also had a rich heritage of manufacturing in Detroit with the auto industry and so many of the other ancillary industries that spun off from that. So the idea of creating this watch factory in Detroit is really a crazy idea. And it's so crazy that it took 2 years of building and training workers before they even thought of producing the first watch. So you can imagine the amount of capital that went into that big idea in order to ramp up that facility. And the men and women who are building those world-class timepieces that Eric alluded to earlier are men and women who, prior to being at Shinola, were running the gamut from being on public assistance to being part-time security guards to working in fast food joints. Manicurists, yeah. I mean, it's crazy. And I've been with Shinola full-time for just about a year now. But prior to that, I spent 20 years in the NFL, and again, not playing like Baron did in the NBA.
He's a quarterback for the New England Patriots.
I couldn't even pass for a kicker. But the idea when this opportunity arose intrigued me because I had the opportunity to walk around the watch factory and ask the men and women what they were doing, and got those responses that we just mentioned. And then you add on our leather factory. We make all of our own watch straps and a bunch of small leather goods and women's handbags. And so we have another factory on the other side of our facility that does that. And just earlier this year, we started a third factory in Detroit to make turntables, world-class audio turntables that are being built in Detroit by some of the men and women who started in the watch factory. So as we've evolved here over the last 5 years, we started with watches. We now have bicycles and leather goods, and as I mentioned, audio, as well as a number of other things. We now have 25 stores around the United States and actually around the world, in London and Toronto as well. Looking at opening our second location here in Chicago in just a few weeks, our third location out in the suburbs at Oak Brook Mall later on this year. And we will have a critical mass of retail outlets here. But one of the other things that Baron and I spent some time on yesterday is touring around the south side of Chicago, looking for an area where we might be able to bring another factory and expand our offerings in not only in the watch category and potentially other categories, but do so outside of Detroit for the first time. Do so in an area much like Detroit that needs jobs, that has a tremendously rich heritage in so many different ways, and that is starting to see a bit of a resurgence in the south side of Chicago, but it clearly needs some jobs and some rebirth. And we don't proclaim to be able to do everything. Far from it. We want to be a small piece of the puzzle, creating one job at a time, one opportunity at a time, but making sure that those jobs and those opportunities are quality ones that are meaningful to the people who have them, and that really do embody the idea of a true double bottom line investment. Look, we're entrepreneurs. We're out to sell watches. Since Eric stole one off of somebody's wrist, I'm happy to sell you one after the. But we want to create that. But more important for us is our bottom line is measured by the lives that we impact and the jobs that we create. And when you see the men and women who started as manicurists or as pizza delivery guys, and we love to tell the story about our pizza delivery guy building a watch that competes with a third or fourth or fifth generation watchmaker in Switzerland. There's nothing that gives us more pride than that we can deliver a world-class watch to you in less than 30 minutes, and it took you 5 generations to do it. But we like the idea that now these men and women, as an example, are starting to advance their careers. So as an example, we have a gentleman named Willie Holly that started with us. He was actually the security guard in our building, nighttime security guard, and he took the test to work in the watch line. Then he advanced to a supervisor on the watch line. Now he runs a group of about 25 people and is going through some management training. So we're developing a proficiency slowly but surely at training people to give them skills that go beyond just the ability to work in a manufacturing on an assembly line, but take those skills, develop skills that then put them in a position to develop their own entrepreneurial aspirations. We're finding more and more that this isn't a question of aptitude, it's a question of opportunity. And there are so many people in and around Detroit who have phenomenal talent sets that haven't been mined because they haven't had the opportunity through our education system and some other things to mine that aptitude. And we at Shinola are doing our part, we hope, to help give people that opportunity, not only to get a world-class manufacturing job, but to develop their skill sets beyond that manufacturing realm into management and opportunity.
Really impressive. How do I follow up with that? For me, I would say I would be considered a talent miner. So my career, obviously played in the NBA, but I left my agent when I was 20 years old. I walked in his office and fired him, and he said, "What are you gonna do?" I said, "I'm gonna represent myself." He was like, "You're an idiot." And I was like, "I probably am, but I'm gonna take this 4% and put it towards my business." And, for me, it was, I knew that, for one, I had to be an athlete that was different, that was looked at differently, because I was seeing a lot and I was hearing a lot from my teammates and my peers, and none of them were success stories. And so for me, it was like, why would I be dependent on a system that is, setting you up to fail? And from that point, it was just, starting my own agency. Then from that, it was like, oh, then we should probably have a movie division and a music component. And so, looking at certain deals and things like that. All right, here comes the Sprite deal, and it's like, do I need the money? Or here's vitamin water, I should invest in this company. And so if I didn't jump out of my agent situation, I wouldn't have the opportunity to go mine talent and find the next company or the next opportunity. And I think looking at it now, 15 years from now, you see an article comes out about LeBron James having this multimedia empire. And I go back to 8 years ago when I sat down with him and his team, and I was like, you guys have the opportunity to do this because, one, you're LeBron James, you're the best player in the world, and you have a platform. And using that platform is going to, one, inspire other athletes to, one, invest in companies, want to, find what their why is and who they are. And then also you're building a safe haven for younger athletes to come in and to learn from somebody who's been through it. So for me, starting kind of Baron Davis Enterprise was more about opportunity. How can I give opportunity to talented people who need it? How can I find the right business strategists, and partner them with the right athlete or with the right celebrity to figure out what that brand is? And Tom and I, not this Tom, but the big Tom, he gave me my start after I hurt my knee and I retired, and I didn't really know at that point what I wanted to do. but he was like, come in, and he knew I liked to be creative. So I went into the animation studio, and from there we started talking about Shinola and things that, ways that I could help and kind of bring like cultural influence to things. And so I started to really figure out, who I was, one, as a creative, two, as a person who, wanted to do good in society and wanted to help people. And I think that, from that experience, it just allowed me to grow. To have a safe haven, to be around people in the business world, to learn, to be a fly on the wall, and then to figure out eventually, like, okay, now I'm ready for this family office. I'm ready for this creative agency, and I'm also ready to give athletes the platform to be in business with, a vast majority of really successful business people. And I think that opportunity is the key. And like you were saying, the double bottom line is, you give somebody an opportunity to grow and be who they are, then that's just going to trickle down and affect, the community all the way to the local community. And I think a lot of times, us as athletes or people, we try and solve national problems. And a lot of times you just got to zero in and focus in on creating local celebrity, creating local movements, and everybody diving in on a local cause.
I would agree with that 100%. I think, it is about one opportunity at a time, one job at a time. We started with 9 people when they were building the watch factory, starting the watch factory in late 2011. We now have about 643 employees around the country, 350 of those in Detroit, about 200 of those in our factories. So we're not changing the world on a global scale. We're not creating thousands of jobs at a time. We're creating tens of jobs at a time, but they're meaningful and they're impactful. And I think one of the things Barron just said resonated because it's something that Tom Kartsotis, our founder, talks about all the time, and that is not stopping with that one idea and not stopping with just being satisfied by creating a manufacturing job or an opportunity in the music industry, but how do you then expand beyond that? As an example, and I know Eric at the outset was talking about his involvement in workforce development. One of the things that we're doing in Detroit is trying to leverage our experience by partnering with other institutions that are active in the workforce development space. Mm-hmm. So as an example, I mentioned our leather facility where we have people that we're training to cut and sew leather. And so we want to partner with large manufacturing entities in Detroit, like the seat manufacturers for automobiles. They cut and sew thousands and thousands and thousands of yards more than we do when it comes to leather. But it's the same fundamental skill. You're still cutting and sewing leather. Well, we got together with them and then with our mayor in Detroit and with our community colleges and said, wouldn't it be great if we could take create an apprenticeship program in the cut and sew space? So we're teaching men and women not just to cut and sew leather so they can have an $18, $20, $25 an hour job for the next 20 years. But we also then wrap in some business skills, teach them QuickBooks, teach them entrepreneurial skills, do the kinds of things that Barron was just talking about by immersing them in the business side of things so that they then can take those cut and sew skills that they're developing and go chase their own entrepreneur. Absolutely. They can create an apparel line. They can start their own factory and create 4 or 5 or 6 jobs around a skilled cut and sew set and have the business, some of the basic business skills necessary to do that. So hopefully being able to leverage our opportunities in partnership with entities who are already, both public and private, that are already doing a great job, and seeing if together we can't create more as a whole than any one of us could as an individual company.
Yeah, and I think from a content standpoint, content is key because it's the projection to the world. So it's great that you're doing all that, but who knows about it? And how do you build, that local team? How do you have, what is the content that's going to be the driving force that brings those institutions, to the brand that want to do those partnerships? And then how do you navigate or how do you project out what that apprenticeship is, to get more people in there? So for me, as a content maker, a content creator, just like the last short film that we saw, is like those things need to be out. Mm-hmm. So strategizing and figuring out, messages that are important, where do they go? Who has them? Who shares them? Things like that. I think it is the blanket on top of, all the business infrastructure, the workplace stuff. The content is so meaningful, especially in today, because, messaging and things are moving. But if we can actually have things happening on the ground floor and we can show what's happening, then that creates a movement. And that's how you create change. Things have to happen on the bottom.
That's a phenomenal point, because it really played out yesterday, as a matter of fact. When we were going around in the South Side touring some potential facilities out there and looking at some real estate, meeting some people, Barron was posting stuff on Snapchat and Instagram. And I wouldn't have thought to do that, but he's out there telling a story that is organic and it's genuine and it's authentic. It wasn't designed to be a marketing message or an ad campaign. It's designed to keep.
Yeah, it was a joke because I'm in Chicago and all these guys that are producers and rappers and basketball players, they live in LA. So I was like, hey man, I'm in your neighborhood. At a school is run down, like where are you guys at?
But takes a California guy to come out and do that.
But the point is, then they all start chiming in, like, oh, what you doing in my city? I was like, it's my city now. So, it gets them going. It shows, who's engaged and who's thinking about it. And a lot of times people don't have, they don't have the outlet or they don't have the inroad to know how to come back to the city to do something unless you're a big high-profile celebrity or, a high-profile musician. So it's kind of hard for the people who really want to affect change and do things, because they don't really know, where those outlets are. So for me, I just put it on Instagram and make a joke out of it. And that's how we get these guys to come back into the South Side of Chicago, come back into your neighborhoods, because I'm recognizable, but I'm from Los Angeles. But imagine, these kids knowing your story, knowing how local, your story is, will inspire and give them opportunity when a factory is across the street, to want to go and be that security guard. Absolutely.
Well, listen, we know our time is up. We want to thank you for your time this morning. Thank you for listening to us, and we wish you a great rest of the event.
Yeah, thank you, Social Innovation. Appreciate it.